right, we're live. Hello, everyone. Give you all a second to get settled in here. But I want to give everyone a huge hello and welcome to our 14th live stream for the Empowerment Podium. For those of you returning, welcome back. And for those that are new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are joining us today, and I really hope you'll stick around. You can join this community by subscribing to this channel, following us on Instagram and TikTok, and liking us on Facebook. The links to those socials are in the description down below. I'm so happy to be joined by today's speaker on such a unique topic. Today we will be following a TED Talk style format, followed by a Q&A session. So if you want to get in on that Q&A and you have a question for today's speaker, please feel free to submit any questions that you have in the chat, and we will try our best to get to those during the Q&A. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to present today's speaker. Today we are joined by Meg Wiseman. Meg is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and intuitive mentor. She is also the founder of Power and Wisdom. She combines her in-depth clinical hypnotherapy training with her excellence in meditation to connect the heart and mind in an innovative way to help others discover their own intuitive intelligence. Today, we will learn how interpreting the language of emotional energy through your intuitive senses empowers you to connect to your intuitive intelligence. So, with that, I will hand it on over to Meg.
Oh, yes. Hi. Am I in there yet? Okay, here I am. I'm so excited to be here, and I am just thrilled that Kay allowed me to come to the Empowerment Podium to share this message. This is some of my favorite things to talk about, emotions and intuition. It's my life's passion now, and so I get to share this with you and how we find the connection between these two beautiful and powerful things in our lives. We both feel emotion, and we all know that we recognize those emotions in our life, but we may not always recognize the intuition that we have and recognize that connection that those have when we are using those emotions, that there's an actual intuition that goes along with that. So just so you know, I'm going to cover these several areas in my class, and so you can stay to the end. First, we'll talk about emotional energy. Then we'll talk about the intuitive senses, and we'll go into the energetic connections that are related to those, and then different fears and feelings that you have when you are blocking those intuitive senses that you want to have. And then I'll tell you a little bit about my story and how I began my emotional intuitive discovery. And then we'll talk about the heart and the mind and that connection and the importance of it, and emotions and intuition and how we use that in the hypnotherapy and meditation. How do we get deep into those so that we can practice using them and discover them? And I do that in the hypnotherapy that I do with people. And in my own meditations, I love creating meditations that help people get connected to their emotions and intuition. And we'll cover the Intuitive Empowerment Mastermind. So stay to the end. There's so much good stuff. I can't even wait. Okay, so let's talk emotions. So the word emotion actually defines itself. If you look at it, it says emotion. And so what I've learned is that emotions are actually energy in motion. The inside of us, we have energy that moves, and the emotion is what we've used to describe this energy. So we have emotions moving inside of us all the time. Feelings of fear, feelings of excitement, feelings of sadness, and those are an actual energy, and they move around us. So the word emotion actually is a really cool word. If you think about it, it describes that energetic motion that goes on when you're feeling. And the movement of this emotional energy allows us to communicate to our physical body. We can feel emotions physically, right? When we get a stomach ache, when we're nervous, or we get a headache because we're stressed, we can actually feel this emotion in our, what I call is the energetic body, or some people call the soul or your spirit. Your spirit actually feels these emotions too, and it wants to express those and communicate with you through this emotional energy as well. So, how we interpret this language of emotion is how we understand. It's listening to that language and what these emotions are trying to tell you, and understanding that helps you become in tune with your intuition, these intuitive senses that I'll teach you about. Your senses, your seeing, your hearing, your feeling, they are the things that tell you what the emotions are trying to say. So you can see what your emotions are doing. You can hear them, you can feel them, and your soul brings that out to you. And I've seen this over and over in my hypnotherapy and meditations. It's just fun to watch that process happen. So it's like this invisible connection that we have, just like when you get on your cell phone and you receive a message. We don't see that message coming through until it comes into our ears, until we see it. So there's these invisible connections of emotional energy moving around us, and we are learning to receive the message of it, to interpret what it is trying to tell us. So it's just another way of communication that we sometimes have forgotten how to use. We don't understand this emotional connection that we have and the emotional energy that is just moving around us all the time. So just like we feel and see and hear with our physical bodies, we actually feel and see and hear with our soul, our energetic senses, whatever you'd like to call that. But this is how we learn to receive those intuitive messages that people like to be. People want intuition. There's so many people out there, I've seen them, they're coming to me because this is what I do, that have that desire to develop this intuition. And we do that by going into their emotions and allowing the emotions to stimulate these intuitive senses, and so they can understand them and practice using them. So this is fascinating because once you go in and you connect to your emotions, you realize there is so much connected. We are actually emotionally and energetically connected to so many things in our life. And that I'll share an example when I talk about how I became aware of this energetic connection, because I was emotionally overwhelmed for a long time, and I learned that it was because I was emotionally connected to so many different people. It's because our souls are able to connect on this deep level, and we just don't really understand that. And we haven't learned to process all these emotions from ourselves and from those that we're connected to on that energetic level. So it's learning to sense those messages, the emotions from ourselves, and even those emotions that we're feeling from others. If you're empathic, if you've heard that word, that's around a lot. A lot of people just feel that. They feel that we feel other people's feelings. And I feel like that is just a natural instinct. I just got a dog, so I've been watching him, and he doesn't know our language. He doesn't speak to us, but he can read what we feel. He can understand us by the instinct of connecting to the emotions and how we're interacting. And it's interesting that his natural instinct is that something that we have. We are made to sense fear. We are made to sense when someone's happy. We're made to sense when someone's sad. But oftentimes we've cut that instinct off because it's too painful, or we don't understand it, or we don't want to understand it, or just overwhelming. So it's learning to use this natural instinct of emotional connection and then interpreting that using these intuitive senses that I will talk to you about. So we're just like animals. They have instincts to connect and understand emotions, and so do we. We just have to relearn because most of us have forgotten that skill and that instinct. So I have an example of a client. Her name was Amber, and she came to me because she felt so much feeling. She was overwhelmed, and her emotions were just too much. So when we went into her heart, she was able to discover that she was actually connecting attachments. She had attachments to her children and her husband and to all these things. And actually her attachments, since we connect to our energetic bodies, you can connect people who are living and people who have passed on. So she had connections to her ancestors and angels, and it was just so much emotional energy that she was carrying that she was just overwhelmed by it. But once we were able to process her own feelings and we were able to detach from some of these emotional connections that she had with everybody, she was able to process and release and not carry all that emotional burden. And I taught her how to create this energetic boundary and this shield by her intentions and her imagery, and that power that has to help her really build this energetic shield for herself so she didn't carry all this emotion inside. So that's a really amazing tool that you may have all these connections, but you don't always have to keep them, and you can clear them out and set up those boundaries with intention. We talk about that, like set a boundary, but our bodies actually have a field and an energy that we can do that with intention, and using our mind and our thoughts to create that is really powerful. And I've seen that with many people. And so doing that in a hypnotherapy session is cool because you process the emotion and actually create the boundaries and detach from the things that are draining that emotional energy. So, like I said, we're going to go into some of the fears and feelings that block us from. So this lady, she had all these feelings and fears, but once we were able to go into them and we discovered some of those fears and feelings, it opened up her heart. She removed a lot of the blocks, and she was able to receive deeper inspiration, deeper intuitive messages, because those fears and those feelings were not holding her back from receiving the divine inspiration from her own soul, and even from those who wanted her angelic messengers. Kind of, if you believe in that, there are divine beings who want messages given to us, and that is the intuitive part, is being able to remove the things in your heart and your emotions that are keeping you from connecting to the divine within yourself, and the divine who is trying to teach you and guide you through your life. So that is a beautiful and powerful thing I like to do. So most of us just have never been taught how to manage our emotions and our intuition. Many of us maybe develop fears about how, if something was too powerful, if feelings were too much, or if we started seeing things, lights or angels, it was too scary, or if we were getting messages in our words or thoughts and it was overwhelming, we turned off that skill, we turned off that instinct because we didn't understand it and it was scary. And so when we misunderstand things, we become afraid of them, and then we're not able to use them in the way that they were meant to be used. So this keeps us from developing our intuitive gifts and our abilities in the way that they were meant to. So I like to help people discover those fears and those feelings that are blocking them from really going deep into their intuitive abilities and their gifts. And it's fun. It's amazing to watch somebody. I just had a new session this week where she had all these fears. And once we broke through the fear, the barrier, she opened up and had this beautiful visual of who she was before she came to this earth. Who she was, not just who she was in physical, but who her soul was and who she was created to be. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it, because that is where I'm going. This is deep work. This is deeper than just this world. This is going into who you are at the deepest level and what you were created to be. And going into the emotions that are blocking that is where we find it, because it takes you and finds the block and helps you open up to that deep part of you that you know you are at that deepest level. So I'll just share a little of my story. So this is how I came to understand intuition and emotion, is because I was very, very overwhelmed physically and emotionally with all these feelings, and my body was shutting down, and I finally knew I needed to do something. So I did lots of things. I studied, I went to healers, I went to therapists, I did all these great things, but mostly I learned to meditate. I took time to go inward and listen. And I listened to what the feelings were. I listened to what it was trying to tell me. And when I did, I was able to connect to my heart at a deep, deep level. And with my studies and my understanding of the heart and how it connected, it allowed me to realize that there was a reason I was feeling these things, and that I was actually receiving in messages from my soul, from other people, and from intuitive guides who were trying to help me. So it was a hard thing to go into the emotions at first. You're kind of scared to go there, but once you do, you open up yourself to receive in such a deep way. So I discovered my own intuitive senses and started practicing using them. I even learned to communicate with my own angels and my ancestors because I was feeling the things that they were trying to tell me. And my heart was able to feel and sense because it still could communicate on that energetic level using emotion and help me receive those messages. And now I've learned to do things visually and do things and listen and do other ways. But that was my first connection, was opening my heart to receive those answers intuitively and begin to understand my gifts, my ability to connect. So I loved the heart and I really learned to connect there, but then I needed something more. I needed to understand the mind because there was still all these thoughts and still all these beliefs about myself, and they were running through my brain and they were throwing all those negative feelings at me still. So I found hypnotherapy and I did my own sessions, and I found it was so powerful that I said, I have to do this for people. And so I became trained as a certified hypnotherapist, and now those things that I was trained with to go and understand the beliefs and the feelings and get to the deep subconscious root of those things helps me help people uncover the things that are blocking them from receiving and connecting intuitively. And once we do this, your mind actually is like the house for your intelligence. Your mind is there. It's an organ, but the intelligence that's inside your mind is actually what's is keeping the thinking process going. So it's connecting to the intelligence. The intelligence who you are at the deep level. It holds everything about who you've always been and who you are now, and even is programmed with information that you need to become who you are meant to be. So when you're able to go deep and connect to that intelligence that holds the information of who you are at the deepest level, then you receive answers beyond what you can imagine. And I've seen it over and over again. It's amazing. We go in and we find answers. The questions you ask are found within, and it's so powerful to go in and discover those within yourself. Sometimes we're searching and searching and searching everywhere to find the answers that are already right here. So it's fascinating and amazing to do this work and go inward. And sometimes you need someone to help you go in and sort out what's in your heart and mind. But once you do and you're able to focus inward, there's a lot of beautiful things that you can discover about yourself. Okay, so I use this innovative way. It's my own way of using hypnotherapy and words and just connecting to that intuition to discover all those beautiful things about yourself. So I'm just going to share a little example. I have a client, her name's Kiara, and she was living in a ton of fear. She didn't believe she was good enough. She feared she was ruining herself and her family. And she started going into the fear instead of just trying to numb it and distract from it like we like to do. She actually went into it with me, and we went deep into her childhood, and she found some deep things that kind of triggered that feeling of fear of not being good enough. But when she addressed it and we addressed that inner child that screaming out to her for help, she was able to process those emotions and really do all the deep work that she needed to uncover who she really is at the deepest level. So now she feels a lot more peace and confidence and strength in who she is. She feels that our favorite thing, she already told me this, she said I could share it. She said, when I go into these fears with you, my favorite thing is discovering the lies that I believe about myself and changing those into the truth. Because so many of us have all these beliefs about who we think we are and what we think we can or cannot do. But when we discover the truth, we uncover who we really are at the deepest level. And that truth and that discovery of yourself empowers you to really create that person, because you are no longer living in those lies that you believe you are at that deep level. And it's going in and finding where those lies are rooted in those subconscious memories and those emotions and experiences that really helps you transform, because you're able to get to those roots and start changing yourself at the deepest level. So I love that story. One more story about me, so I can connect. That was about emotions, but I want to show you how the emotion can connect you to an intuitive message, intuitive experience. So I did this meditation on the supermoon, if people are into supermoon stuff. And I heard about it that day. I was like, oh my goodness, I got to find something that I need to let go on the supermoon. And so I went in and I asked my body, what do I need to work on today? And my body now, I sense things because I'm a kinesthetic sensor. And I sensed that my throat needed work. And in there was a fear of speaking and expressing, which is funny because now this is what I'm doing, with sharing all my truths with the world. So I knew that needed to be worked on. And when I went in, I found that there was this image, and it was this image of women, and there was all these women in front of me. And I realized that these women were the women who came before me. These were my grandmas and my ancestors, and they felt the same, and they had come to me so that we could work through this fear. They felt the same. They felt they couldn't express their truth. And as I worked on it through me, because I'm connected to them through our DNA, through our spiritual lineage, the work I was doing on myself was healing me, but I also invited them to do the same work so that they could receive that same powerful healing work. And so that just shows you how that fear emotion connect me to an intuitive message from my angels who needed that work done, and we were able to work on it together. So it's an amazing thing to be able to connect to those things and discover what is waiting inside to come out. I did not expect to work with my ancestors that day. So that's the intuitive message that I received, and it was really powerful and fun for me to work through. So your intuitive senses, we'll go quickly into those, but your intuitive senses, I use the 3 senses. Kinesthetic is your feeling sense, so you can intuitively feel, when you're feeling something peaceful and warm, or when you're feeling something heavy and dark. There are intuitive messages that you can receive from those and that you can learn to understand. That's the one I learned first, so I really like that one. But the second one is auditory. Auditory sense is hearing, so you can hear messages. You can have thoughts and impressions and words that are intuitively coming to you when you're thinking about your emotions, when you're asking for answers. And then there's the visual sense, seeing. Lots of people are visual if they have dreams that receive messages, or if they see pictures in their mind, or they see colors. When I close my eyes, I now notice the colors that come up. Or some people actually see colors in energy around them. I've seen it a few times, and that I know there's people gifted in that. So those 3 senses are tools to help you dig deep into what your emotions are trying to tell you, and even what those intuitive messages are for you. So I can't go into those today. We only have a little more time. So I just wanted to share that with you and let you know that I shared a masterclass inside my group, and you can join that group. It's in the description. It's the Intuitive Empowerment Group, and you can go into each of those 3 intuitive senses with me inside that group. And if you're curious now what your intuitive sense super strength is, I created a quiz, and you can leave your email inside the group questions, and I can get that quiz sent out to you. Or there is also a link to the quiz inside the description. So I'd love to see you in my group, and I would love to see what your intuitive senses are if you want to grab that quiz and find out if you're a kinesthetic, auditory, or a visual intuitive. It's always fun to see. Okay, I'm just going to give a quick example. I have a client named Jessica, and she has the visual sense, and I don't even know if she knew that until we were working together, and we were working on some of her fears, and she started having these beautiful visuals of where she needed to work on her body and how much she needed to. And the stories, they were these beautiful stories and images coming to her visually, and that intuitive sense, visual sense, was helping us process the emotions she was going through. So it was fun to walk her through the emotional process, but actually teach her, did you see that? That's your intuition teaching you. That's you learning to use this gift of yours to to understand yourself at that deep level. So that's just an example of a visual intuitive. Okay, so you've been here a long time, but I just wanted to remind you that I have that Facebook group, and I'd love to have you join. And if you want to learn more about the emotions and intuition, that masterclass is inside, and it's saved inside my guides, those little units that you can watch of my group, because I already did it, but it's there and it's so good. It turned out even better than I expected. So if you want to go deeper into your intuitive gifts and your empowerment, then that is what I do. I help people get in touch with their emotions, learn their emotional intelligence, and also get in touch with that intuitive intelligence. So I created this course. It's a certification course. It's for people who are spiritually focused, who are coaches or therapists, or know that they're a deep healer who wants to connect with their emotions and develop their intuitive gifts. So it's a personal development. So first we do all the work for you, but I train you to use these tools with your family, with your friends. And if you have this as your career as a coach or a therapist or healer, this is something that you can use professionally, and you will become an intuitive empowerment practitioner. So it's really cool to have a certification to do the tools that I teach in this course. And I could go through all the things that are in there, but we learned mind management, we learn meditation, we go deep into the subconscious beliefs and learn about beliefs that you need to reprogram and become a better person. We recognize those emotional connections that we have and how to disconnect and to protect yourself, like I shared before. We learn the body cues within your heart and your body and all your energy centers and how those connect to you and your emotions and your intuition. And we also go in and discover your higher intelligence, your divine purposes, those things that your soul was programmed to do, and how you are supposed to bring those to this earth. How are you supposed to bring those intuitive gifts to this earth? Why were you created this way? What are you supposed to do with these powers? And develop those so that you can bring those to here. And also, like I've mentioned, these gifts were given so you connect with those angels and ancestors in a deep way. So if that's something you're open to and your angels are screaming at you, this is the lady. We've been wanting you to find her so we can communicate. I've had a few people coming in who are like, I know my angels wanted me to be here. So, because they know the messages are coming in and they just want to have those more connected and more clear so they can receive the messages and really go in and be intuitively connected to those and remove all the emotions that are standing in their way, so discovering who they are at the deepest level. So that is what I do with my clients, and I would love to have you be a part of this. This application is, I'm enrolling right now, so you can apply. In the comments, there's an application process, and you get on an intuitive empowerment session call with me, and we just talk about it. I answer your questions, and we go into what it is and if this is right for you, and we talk about those things. And so if you are interested in this, it's a 3-month mentorship and mastermind starting in June. It's my summer semester starts, and you have 6 hypnotherapy sessions with me, and we meet weekly with our group and go over all the training materials. And there's 7 different sections with all kinds of great information in there. I don't want to have to bore you with the details, but if you want to know more, get on that application and come ask me, and we can talk and see if this is what you're meant to be and what you're meant to do. And that's why I'm here talking to you. So if you apply today and you mention this class, then you can receive a bonus session. And this session is specifically for creating what I call your sacred story. Inside the course, by the end, we create the sacred story for you. What I like to do for my clients is create a meditation that really goes into the beliefs that they want to transform and goes into the person they want to become. So the sacred story is the story that you are creating for yourself. What does your life look like? What am I creating? What beliefs am I changing? And you will do that alone in your course, or if you sign up. I love to do that with the people who want to really reprogram their subconscious beliefs with those meditations every day, so that that new you is created within the sacred story. So that's your bonus session. If you've apply today and mention this class. Make sure you let me know, because I have people coming in from different places. So that is what I have for you. I would love to see any of you more. And if you want to find me, I am the founder of Power and Wisdom, and you can find me on Instagram at Power and Wisdom, or Facebook, Your Power and Wisdom, inside my group, or at powerandwisdom.com. So Power and Wisdom, it's my name, my wise man. So that's why I founded Power and Wisdom, because it goes with my name so good. But that's all I have for you, and I'm so glad that you were here and that we were able to share this message. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meg, for that. That was really so outside of what I normally learn about, and it was just so cool. So thank you for sharing. I think now we'll pop right into the Q&A portion.
Sure.
And we did actually get someone who submitted a question.
Perfect.
The supermoon did pop out to some people. So one of the questions comes from Christy. What should we look for or do this Wednesday's supermoon? Is there anything that I can do to set myself up for emotional and spiritual success?
Oh, that is a great question. See, I learned of it that day or that day before, but there were some cool things I learned. I learned that you can set an intention and do meditation to release, because the moon think of the tide. It pulls the tide. If it can pull the tide, it can pull energy from us, especially as women. We are deeply connected to the moon. My body's like getting shivers. It's like, yes, you have things to release. So our bodies are supposed to be deeply connected to the moon. And I don't know if we are as connected as we used to be when, there wasn't electricity and things. I think bodies were meant to be connected to the moon. So connecting to maybe something that that you are ready to let go of, and let that intention go that night. Write it down. I did it through meditation because I knew, and I felt where that feeling was. Feel where it is in your body. You're like, yeah, I have this fear and this doubt. Okay, that's great. You wrote it down. Now go inside and feel where that is, and say, tonight, my intention is that I'm letting this go. I'm going to let the moon, power of the moon, just let it flow right out. And imagine that happening for you. Our imagination and our intention is so powerful. And we just need to learn to do it. We need to learn to use our powerful mind and our intention to do things like that, because our souls listen to what we tell them. So if we say, hey, I'm ready to let go of this fear and doubt and grief and sorrow and sadness, and then it's like, okay, she said it. So let it be done, right? So I would say do some meditation, some journaling. I heard this, and I think it's kind of fun. I did it. I don't know what it did, but I put a glass of water in the moonlight, and the moon charged it for me. So I have this charged moon water to drink, right? And you bring it into your soul. And you know what? It's intention. You make it as powerful as you want it to be. If you want to drink moon water and soak it into your soul and let it refill that hole that you just released all that fear and doubt from, let it be done. Use it. Use that power and use the intention to do those cool things, whether it seems silly or not. I mean, it's intention of cleansing and then refilling with those things. That can be a cleansing process that you can use since it's a time to do it.
Awesome. Yeah. I have also felt that's interesting that you say women are connected to the moon, because I feel like I've always been kind of drawn to it in a weird way. So that's really interesting.
I had someone do some healing work on me, and she said, you're supposed to connect to the moon. She's like, I don't know why I said that. And I'm like, that's so funny. So when the moon things come up, I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to connect to the moon. It must be this like divine feminine within me who wants to connect to the moon, because there's probably so much more than I even know. But I know there's this deep connection to the moon and our cycles. So that's definitely something we can start remembering and using.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I am curious how you kind of discovered this connection between emotions and intuition. Like, how did you ever even go down that path and figure that out.
Right. Well, at first it became, I just studied everything I wanted to know about emotions. Like first I was just like, why do my feelings this strong? What is emotions? And I learned all about the brain and how emotions work in the brain. And I learned why emotions were connected to my heart. And then once I cleared out, like I've said, I did this on myself first, which helped. And now I help people do it. I cleared out a lot of the fears I was having and the doubts and the guilt and the shame and all this stuff. And once I found that those things were gone, it was like all this darkness had been let go so that I could receive more light and truth. And all of a sudden, these intuitive messages and these feelings and these inspirational thoughts, things just started to come more clearly. And then I recognized I'm a teacher. I used to teach school. And so that I recognized that the language that we learn this way I used to teach you kinesthetic sense, your auditory sense, your visual sense. That's how we learn other things physically. So of course we would learn spiritually or energetically the same way. We have these sense that's a little deeper. And when you see and you hear and you feel at that deeper soul level, it's the same process. It's the same practice. It's the same way of learning. Oh, I have an inspirational thought. So the first thing I learned was to connect. All of a sudden I knew my heart had messages for me. And this is going to sound weird, but whoever needed to hear this will hear it. So I would go in, because I feel like intuition is something to be practiced and developed. Everyone thinks you're either gifted or you're not, but I think we all are. It's just learning it. So I learned to listen to my heart and feel. I had asked my heart, this is so funny, it makes me laugh saying it out loud. What does my yes feel like? What is heart? When I know something is a yes, or that it's true, or that it's right for me, what does yes feel like? That's because I was a deep feeler. I'm a kinesthetic. That's my strength. So I can feel, okay, when I ask a question, yes feels, for me it's an upward motion. And then I would be like, what does no feel like? What is no? And then my no just feels like blah, nothing. So I just learned through practice. And then I study like crazy. I love learning from other people and going to classes and healers and therapists. But usually you can learn all the things and try to learn them, but it's actually taking them inward and practicing them and using that and listening and feeling and understanding who you are at the deepest level, and that you have things that nobody else can teach you, probably within yourself. Because when I have people come, it's fun because I can teach them a tool and then they will twist it and use it in their whole new way that's unique to them. So we all have our own unique intuition and intuitive gifts, and we develop that by practicing it. So I don't know if that answered it. Now I went off on something.
No, it definitely did. Very, very cool. And to kind of, expand on that, why do you think it's so important that you do connect your emotions and intuition?
I think it's really important at this time because I think so many of us have shut it down and are living in this place of fear and misunderstanding. I know I study lots of people, but it made sense to me that as soon as we start shutting down our soul and our connection to who we are at the deepest level, we start to fear because we're not connected to who we are at the deepest level. So I feel like a lot of the anxiety and fear that we have coming up is because we are not connected to the intelligence and to the power that is within ourselves, and that's scary. We don't know how to connect with all of the beautiful messages and programs and preparations. I believe in the divine source. So I believe I was divinely created with all these gifts and powers and information to give this world. And as soon as you start shutting that off and you realize, I'm not connected, I don't know what to do anymore, that's a scary feeling. And so I feel like once you're able to realize there's all these answers within you and you were prepared to do these things, then there's a relief and there's a comfort and a strength to know that you're not alone and that you were divinely prepared for this. And there's actually divine guides and messengers waiting to help you move forward through this life. It relieves all that fear and anxiety because you're not alone anymore, and you were prepared for this, and you received the answers you need for your life.
Yep.
So I think in a world where things are getting more confusing and there's so much information going on, we need to know how to receive our own answers, to know what truth feels like to me, like my heart. What is yes to me? What does truth feel like to me?
Yeah.
We need to stop looking out here all the time and trying to find the truth, and go inward and find that within ourselves, because we have more in there than we are probably aware of. And that it's just believing that quieting the outside world and going inward, you find a lot more answers and peace and understanding within your own soul. And so that's what I like. I like helping people quiet the out world and go inward.
I love that. That's amazing. I think that's so cool. And it's so important to do those like self-reflections and to go inward, but it's hard to do. So
yeah,
it's awesome what
you need reminders, because you're like, oh yeah, go inward.
Perfect.
I have answers. It doesn't seem like it, but I go in and I can find maybe everything I've been looking for, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. And yeah, that's all the questions that I have for you. So I believe that's kind of the end of our talk, but I just want to give another huge thank you to Meg for joining us today and teaching us so much about the connection between emotions and intuition, and why it's so important to learn to connect with both. This, like I said earlier, this is like completely new territory for me, so I've definitely learned so much. And I really encourage everyone watching, if they want to learn more, to go check Meg out. I've included all those links that she talked about earlier in the description in the video down below, so you can find her there. But I just want to thank you again so much, Meg.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been so fun. And I love that it's called Empowerment Podium, and that's what I do. So it's perfect.
Love it.
We're meant to find each other.
Yes, it was meant to be.
Now, all right. Have a good night.
You too. Before everyone hops off, I just want to do a quick few shout outs. If you want to share your story just like Meg, let me know. Email us at empowermentpodium@gmail.com or message us on our socials. We have Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, all of which you can find by searching at Empowerment Podium or at the links in the description down below. So give us a follow there to stay up to date on when we will be going live next, and to see some replays of our stories. If you like this stream, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. You can also hit that notification bell to receive a notification every time we post a new video or live stream. Thank you guys all so